hmm Hello. Hope everyone's doing well. Sorry, just checking to make sure it's actually recording while I sit here and also looking to make this full screen. That's much better. Now there's nothing in the background. All right, so this is, I kind of talked about doing a Zoom on Monday whenever teachers are supposed to be off. And I thought, I'll do it anyways, no big deal. My wife started a bunch of projects over the weekend, Lego table, painting my daughter's desk that's in her room and everything. And so honestly, Monday was most of my time doing all of that. And so I just figured I'll make this video for you guys. Again, there are um, better videos out there than what I'm going to give you. I'm just trying to jog your memory with some of the stuff. So I'm going to kind of bring up a few things that happened throughout Unit 5. And then we'll do Unit 6 tomorrow in a Zoom. And then next Monday, we'll do Unit 7. And Wednesday, you're going to take the test. So let me just say real quick, if any of you have any questions, if any of you have any concerns, if any of you are you're just saying like, I don't know if I should do this, take the test. You've done the work. You've done 3/4 of the entire year. You had all the knowledge before you left that you needed to take it. I've given you enough practice. I've done a whole lot of things. You can even find your own practice on the side. Like I said, the YouTube AP videos and AP Euro have been giving every single day they do a live. They're giving practice that you can do, and they're even coming back the next day and showing you like, well, this student answered this way, and it looks really good. And so they're giving you good examples, and so there's plenty of stuff out there. So don't flake on it now. Just take the test next Wednesday. Don't forget 4 o'clock is when that test is. But anyways, let's dive right in. We'll go over more of what I was just talking about tomorrow in our next Zoom. All right, so um, in this time period that we're dealing with in Unit 5, in the 1700s, 1800s, remember the population begins to boom. By 1720, the Black Plague is officially eradicated from Europe, and so there's no need to worry about any of that. Public health begins to go up, and also you begin to see canals and road building becoming a big deal. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide more access. You know, it's easier to transport goods from one place to another, not just any type of good, but agricultural goods. So you're going to get more food. And so the industrial, the commercial and the agricultural revolution are going to do a lot to make sure that people have better access to food, better food in general, because if you eat bad food, it's going to make you sick, and your life expectancy goes down. And so all of that kind of begins to change Europe as we move forward into the 1800s, and it's going to have a profound effect on kingdoms and leaders and everything else. And so remember, one of the most important crops for all of this was one that came from South America over to here, and that's the potato. Was a huge crop, especially when you get to Ireland and other areas in Europe. The potato is huge because it had such a large amount of nutrition that people need on a daily basis. And so that was huge. Sorry, just reading my notes here. The inoculation that started with to keep people from getting the Black Plague also changed things. And so there's a lot of good things happening. And so population growth is starting to um, feed into your industries. Now, there was, you do see a lot of workers who basically didn't have any land. And so you're starting to see people in the rural sector begin to move to cities, and they begin to go into industries for themselves. You begin to see a lot of merchants come along, and they finish products which make quality of work a whole lot better. Not even just from them, but like if you get a better axe, if you get a better chair, if you get better items, then the merchant can sell them for more, but you're also not purchasing them as often. And so it's very good. There was an abundance of laborers at this time. And what that's going to do is you're going to see laborers on the farm, but as these better tools and these better things begin to come out, what you're going to see really take place is there's not as much need for workers, for all of these laborers on the farm. So where are they going to go? They're going to end up moving to the cities. And I'm pretty sure Unit 6 is all of our industrialization and all of that. Sorry, the brightness seems to keep going up and down. But industrialization is going to be huge. And so that's where all these workers are going to go as they're being taken out of the rural area and going to where jobs actually are. Now, understanding population growth is going to lead us to 1789, which is a very important year for the French Revolution. Absolutely. Hopefully, at least one of you answered that correctly. Now, you think about it, the Americans have just come out of their successful revolution. The French are kind of seeing their chance, their opportunity. They've seen it work somewhere else. And so now we're going to have our own. Remember, their population was somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 million at this time. We don't have exact numbers. Census wasn't done. But remember, France is broken up into 3 estates. The first one was clergy, and they made up about 0.05% of the entire population of 25 million. Not very much. And then you have the second estate, which is the nobility. They make up about 1.5%. Remember, that's your 2 groups, would include the nobility of the sword and nobility of the robe. And they own a quarter of all the land in France. They're exempt from taxes. So that means that essentially 24.5 million people, roughly, are responsible to pay the taxes for the entire country. They owned somewhere around the neighborhood of 20% of the land, so even less than the nobility owned. And while a few of them held positions in government, most did not. And remember, the ones who would have held positions in government were the bourgeoisie, your middle class, that's included in the third estate. And then your peasants and farmers are going to make up 86% of that 24.5 million. And they're the ones who struggle paying the taxes back the most. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of resentful people coming along, and they're not going to be too happy with all of the advantages that are given to the rich and the disadvantages that are given to the poor. Seeing as they're the ones feeding the country, you probably should take care of them, but they didn't understand that at this time, basically. France was also in heavy debt. They've been in multiple wars up to 1789. We can go all the way back to the French and Indian War, and then so on and so forth. The American Revolution they were also involved in. So there's a lot of wars throughout the 1700s that they've been involved in. And so there's a lot of debt. And so the king is raising taxes and raising taxes and raising taxes. And the French help for the Americans actually what had a negative effect in France as it bankrupted them. It bankrupted the entire country. And so that's going to be problematic. And to make everything, like just put the icing on top of the cake, they had some poor grain harvests in those years, in the 1780s. And so people are starving. People are unhappy with taxes. And remember, whenever you take those 2 qualities, whenever you take high taxes, and people are going to be upset about that, but also when you make them hungry, bad things will happen as a general idea. And so that is going to lead to the downfall of the French Revolution, and well, really the coming of it and how far it goes after that. Now, another thing that was proposed at this time that also leads us down this road is one of the ministers will bring a proposal to Louis XVI that they should tax anyone who owns land. Well, remember, the first and second estate, first estate's the church, they don't pay taxes. So they're not going to pay for the 10% of land they own. Then the rest of the land that's owned by the second estate, your nobility, they're most likely going to weasel out of it or pay something very minimal. So the third estate is where the majority of this is going to lie. And if the first 2 estates aren't paying anything, guess who has to pick up the slack from them? Well, that's going to be the third estate. And so that's going to lead to the calling of the Estates General, which, remember, hasn't been done since 1614, 15, if I remember correctly. And so they're going to call everyone together, and the Third Estate kind of sees this is their chance to fix things. And of course, we know disband the Third Estate. They can't come in. So what do? Well, they get together. They declare themselves the National Assembly, and they make what's known as the Tennis Court Oath. They will not leave the tennis court until they are heard and things change, and it's an amazing time for them, I guess. And so what happens is the king sends troops to disband them, and then on July 14th, not July 4th, July 14th, 1789, this group, this National Assembly, these disenfranchised people will storm the Bastille, which, remember, is a political prison, and they will overrun it and set free anyone who's basically an enemy or an opponent that Louis XVI doesn't like. And so you're going to see this revolt that's going to take place. And really, it's going to start a time period known as like the Great Fear. Like, what's going to happen? These peasants are in control. They basically force the king to recognize the National Assembly as the actual body that's running, the political body that's running the country. And they abolish the feudal privileges of the nobility. And so they're going to come in and basically say, you know what, feudalism is done. We're going to get rid of it. And so now we're going to do our own thing. And so then you're going to have on August 27th, 1789, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. And this was basically a practice of bringing in all the Enlightenment ideas that had been going around throughout this time period, which, again, America was strongly responsible for. They wanted equality before the law, individual freedoms, judicial rights, and representative government were the main things that they called for in that famous statement. Basically trying to draw equality for everyone everywhere. Now, things begin to go downhill from there. You have 7,000 women who march to Versailles and kill a bunch of the servants on the way there. They're trying to get to the queen. Obviously, if you guys remember that they escaped Versailles before the peasants got there, but things are not. Things are going downhill. They're less of a revolution and more of just a killing spree of anyone who is against or perceived to be against them. And so then they basically make the type of government a constitutional monarchy, so the king has to abide by it. And the National Assembly would only consist of French male property owners. And so that's, if you remember, we did talk about that. And the king fled, but then he was caught anyways, and he was beheaded, which not good. That's not what you want. They were returned to Paris, beheaded later on, and also the Constitution of 1791 broadened the rights for women as it legalized divorce and allowed them to actually inherit property, something that they had never been able to do before. And then 1791, Olympe de Gouges, pretty sure that's how you say that, writes her Declaration of the Rights of Women in 1791. Later on, I think it was in the fall, if I remember correctly. And so all of these changes are happening. You're seeing women getting involved and women getting rights, and you're seeing that they are starting to be heard. And so the French Revolution takes off. Remember all the killing, all the bloodshed, Robespierre and his reign of terror. Things are not great there. And then in comes a hero. Well, at least a perceived hero. Remember, he kind of lost a battle, but then blamed it on someone else. And he does all these different things. But Napoleon comes in, and he kind of does away with all the things that are happening. And he promises to make France great again. And he raises the army and goes about basically trying to conquer Europe. That's his end goal. I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but he wants to conquer Europe. He wants to conquer them. He wants to go on out and make France super powerful again. And so Napoleon comes in and he has a lot of victories, and basically Europe has to band together to defeat him. This just to give you an idea of the strength of the French under Napoleon. And he's defeated the first time, and they send him off to the isle, the island, and they tell him, you stay there, all will be well. Well, he comes back again because the island wasn't that far away. And he is defeated once again. He's betrayed, defeated, and this time he's sent even further away and told, don't come back till you die. Then your body can come back. Maybe we'll bury it somewhere, but don't die out there. And so they have the calling of the Congress of Vienna. Now, if you remember the Congress of Vienna, it's basically settling power, as it were. And remember, at this Congress, you have a very influential French guy who comes in, and even though the French have been the cause of all the problems, they're the ones who have upset the balance of power in the map of Europe. He comes in, he makes good with everyone, and basically France becomes one of the main voices at this council. You guys remember his name? Talleyrand? Maybe not. So essentially, the monarchy in France was restored as the Congress of Vienna. France was returned to its original boundaries as of 1792, if I remember correctly. There was also a series of they made other states around France stronger so that they wouldn't so easily be able to break out of their own area, their own country. They also gave Prussia the territory of the Rhine, which is a very resource-rich area that France will fight Germany for later on in world wars. And they also had to pay a compensation. And then the Concert of Europe was important for all of this, as it would try to basically be a peacekeeping body from this point forward. So if there was any problems between nations, you go to the Concert of Europe, they would handle everything, and then all would be returned back to normal. And so another balance of power, remember the Netherlands was joined together, and they were made stronger through all of this. And so all of that is extremely important to know. And so that kind of leads us to the end. The Congress of Vienna is like the last part. I remember we also talked about the Romantic movement and art. Make sure you kind of look over your notes for that. Again, art is not one of my strong points. But remember that the Romantic movement, the paintings that we showed, from the French Revolution, the death, the bloodshed, but also just the passion that is bestowed inside the picture, the use of like color red, and just these ideas throughout. Remember the painting that I showed you, the Raft of the Medusa, which is also a picture that was painted from the French Revolution, and showing, in some ways, the dark side of everything that was going on at that point. A lot of the dark emotion is involved in that painting. And so you see the dead at the back of the raft and the living pointing forward, basically kind of talking about everything at that point. And literature also was very important in this time period. A lot of poetry is written, a lot of different things comes along. And so, pay attention to your Romantic art movement. But we went over a lot of it. It's just running out of time in this video. So I hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully this is helping you. Like I said, there's others who do it probably better than me. But make sure you're reviewing, make sure you're studying units 1 through 7, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.